Is Kennedy Agyapong your very good friend? Or you just know him from afar like everybody else?
Ken is a friend.
It's a friend, okay.
Ken is a friend.
Okay.
I mean, I used to eat kenke and sardine in his house until he made it an issue, and I decided to stop eating kenke and sardine in his house.
Kenke and sardine too?
Yeah.
You made it an issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there was one time, some of us who used to eat kenke in his house, criticized him. So you come to my house and eat my kenke and sardine, and you go and sit on radio and start
God.
And so on and so on. So, but Ken, and look, Ken privately, his public image is substantially different from his quiet private image, and you know that.
Yeah.
In private, he's not as boisterous as sometimes he appears to be.
That's true.
But why did you ask the question?
No, I'm just asking because he's in trouble.
What trouble?
Some young guys in the NPP have filed a petition to the party's headquarters. They said they want him suspended. They want him to be punished because he's made some comments.
What comments?
He's made some comments. Two. One, he's come to rubbish everything else that the NPP has been saying about the Afriyie Hospital and the Siwa Hospital by saying that the NPP must also take, in fact, the NPP must take the full blame for must take some blame for why the hospital has not been built. They had 8 years to build those hospitals. They didn't, and so they've lost the moral guts or the moral right to even criticize the NDC, which is
it true or false?
That's number one.
What he's saying, is it true or false?
And then number two, the same Kennedy Agyapong called into his own show on Net2 TV, and he's saying that the NPP must be careful for attacking him for speaking his mind about these 2 hospitals, and that if they dare him, he would say a lot more. And that the reason why the Agenda 111 hospitals have not been built is because persons who were given those businesses have actually sold the businesses to other people who couldn't complete it. And that is why Agenda 111 has not finished. Those are all his claims, But of course, in that same interview, he said, as we speak in this administration, somebody came to see his wife with some a hospital project and wanting his wife to, buy the project off him or her for the wife to build it. Now, the Herald newspaper is reporting that there is some pressure on him to come and substantiate his claims before the Office of the Special Prosecutor. So we're told it's on page 3 of today's Herald, we're told private legal practitioner and member of the NDC, Hamza Suini, has urged the appropriate state authorities to invite former Asin Central MP Kennedy Agyapong to substantiate his claim that a leading member of the ruling NDC offered his wife a lucrative contract in exchange for kickbacks. Agyapong recently alleged that during the NDC's previous administration, an individual approached his wife. Okay, so previous, that's have been under either Mills or John Mahama. He said, yes, previous. That's the previous NDC administration, or under Rollins, I doubt, because at the time he wasn't. He said previous. That's what he said. That's what the Herald is.
Previous
NDC administration. Yes. He says an individual approached his wife with a contract reportedly worth between $55 million and $58 million, and demanded a 7% advance payment as kickback. The former member of parliament for the NPP presidential aspirant. The former member of parliament, a new Patriotic Party presidential aspirant, however, failed to identify the ministry involved, the alleged official who made the offer, or even the wife concerned, especially having publicly stated on numerous occasions that he is polygamous. Amongst his known spouses are Christian Agyapong. So he goes on and 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 on. And he can also makes the point that the NDC and the NPP were all the same. He says he's concerned about the future of the youth of his country, and that is a fair point. If this country is indeed moving in the right direction, we believe it's under the current administration, then I think that the effort is yielding results. So Hamza is of the opinion that he must come out and substantiate the claims that he's making, and perhaps the OSP must invite him to come and substantiate those claims, and that it borders on corruption and so on. Obviously, what do you make of this?
I think that Hamza is on the right path. Okay. What Hamza is seeking to do is to establish the facts.
Right.
To find out whether indeed what he's saying is true or not.
Right.
And if it's established that what he's saying is true, there are different courses of action that ought to be taken.
Right.
So Hamza is not condemning Kennedy Agyapong, as it were. He's saying that he's made allegations these allegations ought to be investigated and the truth of the allegations ought to be established. That's what he's saying.
Right.
And who can disagree with that, you know? As for those who are calling for his dismissal from the New Patriotic Party and so on, I think they must also answer the very crucial question of whether or not what he's saying is true. And if what he's saying is true, why then do you call for his dismissal? If he's saying something which is true, if he's offering genuine advice about how to revitalize the party, which is the duty of every party member. Of course, if what he's saying is not true and is calculated to smear, you know, leaders of the party as well, that's another matter.
But the NPP has a position on this matter. Why did he go off that position?
But if that position is faulty, if that position is false, you understand? If indeed it is true that the Agenda 111 hospitals have not been completed because those who won the contract sold the contracts to people who cannot complete it and so on, why shouldn't he say it? Is he not a Ghanaian? Is he not entitled as a Ghanaian to protect the public purse? He is.
You're throwing your party's dirty linen in the public.
Oh,
that's anti-party behavior.
But Moro, what comes first?
Well, Ghana first, I agree.
I would think that all party members, including Collins, will place Ghana first. I'm sure that if we were to ask Alhaji Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia, you know, that in the scheme of things, what does he place first? He will place Ghana first.
Well, that's true.
Understand? So if he's placing Ghana first, and it's what we expect everybody, every Ghanaian to do, what is wrong with that?
But the party people are saying they're tired of him.
Unless what he's saying is not true. So the first thing to do is to establish whether or not what he's saying is true or not. That's the first thing. If it's not true, that's a different matter. If it is true, why dismiss him? When he's doing what the party itself promises to do when elected to power. NPP promises that when it is elected to power to protect the public purse. It will make sure that contracts are awarded properly and that contracts are executed and so on. That's the promise the party is making. So if he's insisting on what the party itself promises to do, what is the problem? Unless, of course, that what he's saying is not true, then, you know, the disciplinary question arises.
Collins, you have a better appreciation of your party's constitution. Would you say that Ken's attitude is anti-party behavior? Has it flouted any provisions of your constitution, for which reason you think that he should be sanctioned? Because we all know what your position on this Afriyie and the see where hospitals matter is. You've said that, look, you shouldn't take the blame. That the NDC is now in power, they should fix it. But he now comes out and says that, no, you can't say that. You take the blame. You were in power for 8 years. And he goes beyond that to make certain comments as well. Now your party people are very, very unhappy. They said, we're tired of Kennedy Agyapong. You know, we has to be called to order.
You shouldn't speak the truth.
Well, if he's going to head the party, please keep quiet.
So first of all, the party has not said that Honorable Kennedy Agyapong should not speak the truth.
Right.
So what did Mr. Agyapong say? He went to the hospital to do some donation on his birthday, which is quite normal of him, because I've seen quite a number of donations that he's made to various hospitals. And then he was interviewed at the ceremony. Then he said that the NPP should, as it were, just keep quiet, because we did nothing in our 8 years. And these are his words. We did nothing in the 8 years.
I mean, about those hospitals.
Yes. The question for me is it true that the NPP did nothing in the 8 years that were in power about those two hospitals? Because the records are clear that when the NDC was leaving power, those hospitals were at certain percentages of completion. And when NPP was leaving power, it had moved to a certain percentage. That alone should settle the matter. That it cannot be said that the NPP did nothing in the 8 years when we were in power about those two hospitals. I think that should settle that matter. Moro, I think that's my point. That should settle that matter.
Yeah.
So if the hospital was 30% and when NPP took over, and when NPP was leaving, it's 90%. You can't say that the NPP did nothing in the 80s that were in power.
Right.
That statement cannot be factual. So the NPP is not saying Honorable Kennedy Agyapong should not speak the truth. He has every right to speak the truth. But what he said and what the facts are, there is a huge variance. And that, I think that's the point that some members of the party are making. Especially when the morning before he had that encounter with the media, the health committee, the defense committee members and health committee members of parliament had held a press conference and put out the facts as we know it in the press. Yeah. Then in the afternoon, he says that virtually she said we shut up, we couldn't complete it. Yes, we did not complete it. If we had completed it, I'm sure it would have been in operation. But it's not fair for you to say that we did nothing within 8 years when the facts do not support that. I think what got people even more worried was later on in the afternoon when he had an interview on his own radio station. And I think what got people very worried was when he said he was going to deal with the party. And that if anybody, as it were, is not friendly to him in terms of communication, he was going to by 1st of July or next year.
Are you sure that is what he said?
No, he said that.
No. He has, if anybody is not friendly to him.
Oh, no. Well, he didn't
no,
add that.
I'm paraphrasing.
He's adding his.
No, I'm paraphrasing.
He's not quoting him.
Oh,
if he's going to quote him, then you're right.
That's not what
No, that's not what he said.
I said,
that can be.
Yes, he said he's going to deal with the party. You are in a political party. We love him. He's one of our very, very revered and respected persons. You want to deal with the party that you belong to. Which way? How? You are a member of the Catholic Church. We have rules and regulations governing the Catholic Church. Few people within the Catholic Church make this very bad comment about you. You get angry. And then your response is that you are going to deal with the Catholic Church.
The NPP is not the Catholic Church anyway. So
No, I'm just giving an example. I said an example. And when I was listening to him, clearly he was angered. So I take it that those words, because I know Mr. Kennedy Agyapong loves the NPP. I know he's a party person. So I'm not too sure he will want to destroy or kill the party. But sometimes, you manage the language even in the strongest of provocations. Otherwise, the collective interest of the party cannot, you get the point, cannot be destroyed by your anger. And I must also make this point very clear. Some members of our party, communicators, who insult him, I don't see the benefit that will bring to our party.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Those who use all kinds of language against him, saying all kinds of things, it doesn't solve any problem if you insult Kennedy Agyapong. And when they went for the primaries, I supported Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia. Today, if I see Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, I will not be afraid or shy to go to him. Because my campaign was civil. I spoke about my candidate. I did not insult him. I will be surprised if he's angry at me. He will be angry at me because maybe I didn't choose him to support him. But he will not be angry that I insulted him. Because I never did. And that is a caution to all of us as members of the party. Insulting each other does not solve any problem. If you disagree with Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, why are you insulting him? So, whilst we are pleading with him to be very cautious when making comments about the party, you are going to deal with the party. You are going to do the party. The party is all we have. So if you say you are going to deal with it, obviously all the other members of the party will obviously try to protect the party.
Yeah.
We will not agree with you when you say that. You get the point I'm making. But if there are specific individuals who made some very, very distasteful remarks about you, You can deal with them. He as a member of the party can send petitions to the party to deal with them, just as the members of the party have sent petitions to bring him to the disciplinary committee for a discussion. I'm sure he also has the right to do so. And I'm pleading, let's solve internal problems internally. It helps all of us. The 2028 election is not going to be a child's play. We need everybody, everybody. And I'm happy with the flag bearer. He has shown commitment after the election. He's visited all of them. All of them pledged their support to him. I read the write-up from Mr. Bawumia Campaign, very beautiful write-up, calling on all to come together and rally behind the candidates. So please, let's be factual with our commentary. Ghana first, no doubt about it. But we belong to a particular group, a particular party, which has rules and regulations governing our activities. It is always better and wise to fight your internal battles internally than to bring it to the public domain. These are my few comments.
But Collins, has the NPP as a political tradition run out of ideas on how to manage Kennedy Agyapong? This is not the first time we're discussing Kennedy Agyapong and some tantrums that he's put out. I mean, it's come up several times that he's made certain comments that the party people are not happy about it, and nothing has happened, and it's repeated itself again. What really? Where do you think? Where lies
there's no problem.
The difficulty?
There's no difficulty.
Okay.
We have our own internal mechanisms in dealing with our internal problems.
Okay.
I will not come here and tell you.
But doesn't the fact that it keeps repeating itself means that there's a challenge?
I'm saying that we'll solve our internal problems internally.
That internal problem, that internal mechanism and so on, it's not a secret, Collins. Why are you making it look like
but I'm saying that he wants me
you
to...
have a disciplinary process.
But he wants me to come and sit here and talk about why we've not been able to... If we've gone behind the scenes to have discussions behind the scenes, why do you want me to come and discuss here? I am saying that I'm cautioning everybody. Everybody should calm down. Honorable Ken is a member of the party. He's not left the party. Yes, if I listen to his audio, clearly there was some anger somewhere. I don't think Honorable Ken wants the party to collapse. Where will he be going to? NDC. He said, worst things about NDC. Will you go there too? No, he will not. He will not. And the communication...
He can form a new party.
Oh, one question. Well, he has the right to form a new party.
And there are more parties than NPP and NDC.
I'm saying he can form.
There's PNC.
We don't have a problem. But we all know PNC. PNC we know it's a political party. But we know the dominant ones. we know the dominant ones.
But who says we'll be dominant forever?
Oh, but for now, it will not change. It will not affect the next election anyway. It will not change. PNC will not win the 2028 election.
Well,
they will not. They will not. That's a fact. I'm busy.
There are some people...
Mona is listening to you.
Oh, he's my friend. He knows he's not going to win.
Yeah.
There are some people who actually think... There are some of your colleagues who actually think that he can leave the party for all they care. It's not
well, that's not my attitude.
The NPP
politics is a numbers game. I will not advocate for anybody to leave the party. My caution is that let's rein everybody in. Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia needs everybody to prosecute his campaign.
Right.
But of course, if you're a member of a group and consistently you decide to disregard the rules and regulations, it gets to a point everybody tries to say, then let's put him aside and move on.
As a Yabrel.
Yeah, let's move on. But I don't think Honorable Ken is
you don't think you're there yet?
He's an NPP man. He will stay. He will stay. We will solve our internal problems internally. And I'm telling you, we will come out very strong.
Because you know that politics is also, if you like to call it a game, it's also a game of principle.
Of course.
So it's not just numbers.
Of course. Of course. I believe that.
All right.
Now, if you listen to the contending forces, part of the struggle is about inheritance,
yes,
property, and so on. And I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, how come? Who acquired that property? whose sweat led to the accumulation that they are fighting over. I know that Christians of the church had farms, for example, on which church members worked without pay.
Fact.
Church members volunteered their time to work on the farms and the projects of Christians and so on, leading to this accumulation.
Wow.
But when it came to inheritance, it is the children of the apostle who are struggling over the property. How come that the property does not properly, so speaking, belong to the church, but children have an exclusive right of inheritance? That's a huge problem. You see, all of these churches, the huge ones you see around and so on, the beautiful mansions and edifices and so on, they are built by the collective contributions of church members. But in the final analysis, they end up as property for the head pastors and bishops and archbishops, who can will it to their children. So you can be a church member, you can pay your tithes, you can offer voluntary service, you can contribute as much as you can in order for the church to accumulate wealth, but you have no right to that wealth.
Something is wrong.
The children of your archbishop or head pastor or something, who may not have contributed anything to the accumulation of that wealth, inherit that wealth. Something is wrong.
I agree.
Something is fundamentally wrong. And this dispute should open our eyes to what is wrong with the practice of the churches as businesses. Understand? Some of these churches have built schools, international schools, universities, and so on. The church members whose contribution led to building these institutions and so on, when their children have to go to those schools, they pay through the nose. When the head pastors and archbishops and so on die, that property is inherited by their family. Something is wrong. You understand? Something is fundamentally wrong. And this discussion is not looking at that. You understand? So I find something fundamentally wrong. There is something else which must come up for discussion. You see, all of these archbishops, apostles, and so on, when you go to them with your problems, and it can be a security problem, it can be poverty problem, whatever problem it is, they tell you to come and pay money to them so that they can intercede on your behalf. They tell you to fast and pray for the problem to be solved. Not so?
Yes.
But when they get problems, they don't fast and pray.
How do you know?
Why do they have all these guns? Why are they not asking God to protect them? Why do they have guns to protect themselves? Where is the power of God to protect? You understand? If you have a security problem and you go to your archbishop, he will tell you, bring money, bring cash. He will pray for you. He will intercede on your behalf. You understand? He will tell you to fast and pray. They don't fast and pray. They get private security people to protect them. Now, it is common to go to churches on Sunday and see that the pastors, when they are preaching the sermon, have bodyguards standing behind them. They don't even trust that God can protect them. They don't believe that God can protect them, but they want you to believe that God can protect you. This is the problem. There is a struggle for inheritance. There's a struggle for succession.
There's nothing wrong with extra security beef. You trust God, but you must also have human beings to protect you.
Oh, okay. They should say that publicly. They should say that God's power is not enough protection and that you need also to have private security. They should say that publicly and we would agree with them.
Oh,
you understand? If they have the courage to say that publicly, I will applaud them.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So this whole fraud, I mean, this is just gigantic fraud. No, sir, it's fraudulent. You go to church a lot, I know. You haven't seen. Oh, why are you doing that? You haven't seen the pastors who are delivering sermons. They are delivering sermons. They are not making partisan political speeches. They are delivering sermons. They are interpreting the Bible and so on. And they have bodyguards standing behind them in church. Right behind the pulpit, they are bodyguards. These are charlatans, are they not? Huh? You know, some time ago, the US had an anti-smoking advert. I don't know if they still play it. But in this anti-smoking advert, the Surgeon General of the United States, he pops up on the screen. And he has a cigarette, you know, in his fingers, and he's puffing and smoking, you know. And then he says, "Do as I say and not what I do." This is the same thing happening in the religious sphere. They are telling us to do as they say, but not as they do. And people have become enslaved. You know, now we've come to the point where members of churches, and you all, you know these stories. You know, don't pretend that you don't know, you know. Members of churches, if you buy a new car, you have to take the car to your pastor so that your pastor will bless it. And you know how the pastors bless it? He drives your new car for 3 months, sometimes 6 months, before you can drive your car. What is this? And it is happening. You know, you build a new house. Your pastor has to come and stay in the house for 6 months. You furnish it and everything. He has to come and enjoy the house for 6 months before you can move in. And people believe these things. And what is happening is a clear manifestation of this charlatanry. You understand? And this is where we should have the courage to speak out and stop this thing about, you know, why? The man who is going to inherit Apostle Kojo, look at the number of guns he has in his house. Look at the potency of weapons he has in his house. Unless the police is lying. So this man believes...
It's on video. So,
it's on video, yes.
Yeah, it's on video. The guns are on video.
Well, these days AI can fake.
No. The videos are there.
No problem.
Somebody...
Yeah. So this is the representative of God on earth. Okay? Who can pray for your problems to be solved and so on. But he needs pump action guns. He needs high caliber pistols and so on. And people still go to church on Sunday. They will take their bath, put on lavender and deodorant and so on, put on their best clothes to go and participate in this host. Unbelievable. You know, I'm happy that the police administration is treating these matters as potential crime. Of course. Okay? And I'm very, very happy that the police administration is being very strict in this matter. And I'm hoping that they will continue in that vein. You know, I want to salute the police administration. This is not a religious matter. This is use of weapons, some of them unlicensed and so on. And the police administration is doing the right thing. And that is how we have to approach these things. You understand? I've seen too much of this. Look, I'll tell you a story. I used to live in Ebony, behind Pickford. And there's a woman there who was having all kinds of problems and so on. So she went to see her pastor, and the pastor prayed for her and said, "Oh, all of these problems you are getting is because your husband is a philanderer. Your husband has too many other women, you know, and that you need to fast and so on. Otherwise, this woman will gang up and they will kill you spiritually and so on." And then the pastor told the woman not to tell the husband this revelation. But somehow this woman who loves the husband, and this is a true story, loves the husband and so on, one time couldn't help it and told the husband that all of this suffering is because of your philandering and so on. So husband says, no problem, let's go to your pastor. But when we go to your pastor, don't introduce me as your husband. Introduce me as your brother. Are you listening? This is a true story.
Yes.
So they go to this pastor, the pastor prays, performs his rituals and so on, and tells the man, what? All of your problems is because your wife has other boyfriends. Can you imagine? Destroying families, destroying relationships, and these are just pure charlatans. Why? Who pretend to be on a daily telephone call with God? Why would God talk to some of these people and not talk to you? Don't you have a cleaner heart than some of these charlatans?
I do.
This is the problem. Is this not the problem? If it's not the problem, tell me that it's not the problem. This is the problem. That's wrecking everything. Huh? What is this? Master.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.